Welcome back to the channel. Crypto Trend Trader here with a quick update on Bitcoin. But before we get started, I'd like to remind you it's not financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor. These markets are extremely volatile, so please do your own research and trade responsibly. So here we have the daily chart, Coinbase, Bitcoin. And as you can see, not much has happened over the last couple of days. We basically broke down below this blue moving average on top here, and that's the 200 simple. When we broke down from that, we found support on the light blue moving average here, which is the 200 exponential or EMA. We got the bounce back up off these and kind of tested back up to the top. Couldn't quite get back to the 200. Got rejected by the 89 here, and then after we got rejected, we came back down, tested for support again, and then we kind of just been hanging out in this tightening range here. And what I suspect will happen is you hang out long enough with a moving average like that, and eventually it's going to break. And essentially what's happening right now is we're below the bright green 50 right here, but we're above the 200. So as long as we stay right here, it's going to pull the two of them together. And then what's eventually going to happen is if price falls below the 200, it's going to get the death cross. So we essentially, basically, the way I'm looking at it is we try to get the pop up here to defend the death cross from happening, the green and the blue right here. We popped right up, tested it, consolidated for a sec, popped up here. We've been on top of it since then, but now we're getting no follow through price action. So what's going to happen is if we fall back below here, it's essentially just going to get the death cross, and then it's just going to look like a failed attempt to stop the cross from happening. So at this point in time, I'm not seeing any confidence from the market or anything. And then if we switch over here and just kind of turn on a little bit of resistance and support, as you'll see, we basically were hanging out in this area right here. We got like the spring break to the bottom, and then got like the strong reaction rally out of it, came all the way back up to the point where we broke down from, retested this area now, and if you look at it, we had this giant triangle, descending triangle, this purple triangle here that we were consolidating in this whole time. We broke down, and then we got the spring out and came all the way back up, and if you notice, we came back up and we were consolidating back inside of the tip of that triangle. So then when we got the breakdown right here now, we basically were hanging out in this support zone right here. Now we're hanging out in this zone right here. So essentially we're just hanging out at the bottom of the zone right here, and the longer we just keep hanging out right here along that line, which comes in perfectly with the moving average, I think the more likely we are to break down. And if we break down here, I think the top areas I'm going to be paying attention to is the 786 of that move at the 79.90, about 8,000, the 886 of this move at like 7,700, or else essentially just coming down, and we basically came down and touched that 618 depending on what exchange you're looking at of the larger move, and we're hanging out just over the 0.5. I think what's going to end up happening is that's a very strong support at 7,300. I think we'll come down there, and then we'll get the real reaction. It's going to line up with the 377 as well, and we can kind of get a better idea as to where the market's headed from here. We're still getting the negative histogram, red on the MACD, and we do still have the blue slope, but eventually we're going to lose that and go back to red if these two get too close to each other here, which is likely to happen. We're also, as you can see, sort of like filling out this descending. I'm going to switch back to the shorter time frame here, like a 4 hour. But you'll see we're basically finding support at the bottom of that zone, but we have this descending resistance line that's been stopping us from moving up here, and now we're getting to the end of that triangle. So what's going to happen is here we're going to get a break in one direction or the other, and the initial break may not be in the correct direction. So we may get a push up here and then it slams down lower and it was a fake out, or we may get a break down to the 0.5 here and then we take back off to the upside. But I wouldn't necessarily just trust the initial breakout. So it is important to position yourself ahead of time, and you'll notice that if you were basically to take a position right now out of the bottom of this zone, you'd be positioned pretty well for a break to the upside, but you're in a terrible spot for a break to the downside. So anytime you can get anything close to the top of this range that we're at right here, I would take that as a shorting opportunity. Not financial advice, this is what I would personally do. And again, as we're at the bottom of the range here, it's not a bad time to take a long position if you think price is going to move to the upside. But at this point in time, I'm not necessarily confident. We did get the cross on the jewel, moving to the upside powerfully. We still have the negative slope on the purple though, so I'm not necessarily ready to just jump on this buy signal as of now. I still think that we're going to break to the downside, but I am watching this closely. I'm just not seeing what I need to see out of the market to tell me that all of a sudden we're going to start reversing and move to the upside. So I just want to do a quick little update on Bitcoin. We're looking for that break, the next position. We essentially have some resistance and support zones in mind as to where we could expect it. If we did get the break to the upside, I mean, essentially breaking out of this triangle pattern right here, I think we would get a strong move up and probably come at least back up to the 9,300 range for a test. And then again, if we break to the downside, our initial target's going to be that 8,600 range, and then the 786 at about 8,000, the 886 at 76.75, and then finally the 618 of the big move to retest and potentially get that double bottom, and then have an actual reversal start trending back to the upside at 7,300, and that's for the bulls there. May seem initially bearish, but would be essentially if we bounce on any one of these zones and started getting continuation to the upside, I think it would be safe to assume that we are in fact in a bull market and going to get continuation, potentially to higher prices around the time of the halvening or afterwards. So well, there you have it. That's Crypto Trend Trader Bitcoin technical analysis on the daily and 4 hour with moving average, parabolic SAR, TJD, TD MACD, and Jewel Thief. So have a great day, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Crypto Trend Trader signing off.